Hello, guys and gals. Oh, you know what? Let's do this the correct way, shall we? Hello, guys and gals. So basically, what's going on is there was a campfire thing. I totally was busy with my own stuff. Didn't see it at all. We're a little late. I think we're like about 15 minutes late, so whatever. We'll just watch it from the beginning. It's not really that big of a deal. I want to hear what they have to say. Apparently, they've got some interesting stuff. It's the developers talking about Diablo 4 and probably what they're going to be doing in the future. So let's take a look.
Hey, hello Diablo community. Welcome to the first ever Diablo 4 Campfire Chat.
Now, this is not
First ever.
This is not a live stream.
This is not, well, this is,
even though it's live.
it is live.
Now, it's not a dev stream.
It's not a developer update live stream.
Right.
As you guys know, this is a little bit different than what we had before. We still will have developer update live streams, but Campfire Chats, this is kind of a new show for us. We wanted to get an opportunity to get in front of the community and use this as a way of being able to talk with you guys whenever we need to, and in a casual format. So don't expect a lot of like trailers or videos and so forth in this one. We still will have developer update live streams. Our next one is going to be in July. But we are most definitely going to have more of these campfire chats here in the future. And with those developer update live streams, you will get those big announcements and the big reveals and us going into more detail about big updates that might be coming up in the future. But for campfire chats, we want to use this format to kind of chat with the community and make sure that you all get an opportunity to actually hear from us and talk to us a little bit more often.
I still think my brain, like I was saying, instead of if we keep this seating arrangement instead of between two ferns, be between two jerks, but he wouldn't go for it.
Rod made up this joke literally 30 seconds ago, so.
Like, aren't you supposed to make up jokes on the fly? Like, what do you like script all your jokes? So you workshop them?
I mean, it didn't work 30 seconds ago.
You know, sometimes you have to be funny off camera and then try to be funny on camera. You know, it doesn't always. The magic has to happen when it happens, Adam.
Well, magic that did happen.
So you can see why this is a campfire.
Yeah. And we have to get we actually have to get a campfire in
You
here.
do, or at least a flickering orange light.
And then
movie magic.
Well, a flickering light as opposed to a real campfire, so we don't burn down everything. And then
That's security watch we allow.
And then suddenly everyone will hate us. But we.
I brought s'mores.
You did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I brought a version of s'mores. Like, I wanted Oreo s'mores, and I got Target like gerbated me, so I'm like. I have the Target brand s'mores flavored cookies. So if we want to really get into the campfire notion, we could eat s'mores while talking about the game.
Rod just wanted to eat on camera.
You don't get a body like this without eating cookies, Tiffany. Like, come on.
Rod also has explained to us 3 or 4 different times about his unsuccessful attempts at buying s'mores.
I had a lot of desire to acquire Oreo s'mores last night.
It's been a morning.
S'moreos.
S'moreos.
I'm sorry, I'm saying it
S'moreos.
incorrectly. I wanted s'moreos last night and I failed, but I will drown my pain with Target brand s'mores cookies.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, while Rod is doing that, we do want to talk about launch and how that went. Obviously, D4 is now out in the wild. We had a really great launch. I mean, like it's. We know the community's been really amped about the game. Reviews have been really good. You know, it's been a couple weeks since launch itself, and also like huge shout out to the team here, the live ops team, Tiffany here. By the way, I haven't done any intros.
You didn't even introduce people.
I didn't even introduce
You're a terrible
people.
host.
This is completely
This is why it's
unscripted.
between two jerks.
Awful.
You didn't even introduce people.
Awful. All right, let me do that first before we
Did
actually.
you just make Joe Shelley facepalm?
It's the s'mores thing and the really bad joke. It's just
Can I
throwing me
crinkle the
off.
plastic while you do?
Right next
Yeah,
to your mic.
Exactly.
Right next to
And- yeah, as you like bite into the plastic and rip it off and so forth.
Just introduce the people.
All right. Well, we have Joe Shelley here, who's the game director for Diablo 4. We have Tiffany Watt here, who's our associate production director for Diablo 4, and then of course Rod Ferguson.
The notion
S'moreo connoisseur.
Yeah, the S'moreo addict. But I mean, beyond just associate production, like Tiffany's what is it, your sphere of influence, your remit of control, your the things you're like. But live ops is your thing, right? That's kind of the thing.
Yes, it's one of the things I'm very passionate about. I work with a very, very large live ops team that goes beyond just the Diablo 4 team. So definitely congratulations to everybody across Blizzard that's been supporting us. Lots of time spent in the war room. Lots of time with Adam. Adam was...
Which is, it's a penalty unto
a
itself.
penalty, yes, is the worst part. No, it was really exciting to work with people across the globe. So lots of Zoom chats, but also a physical war room here on campus. And it was just really cool to finally launch this game, work with so many people to bring it to so many players. So congratulations to everybody, and I'm really glad that everybody is playing.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we have sort of in a way a represent like of a great game and a great launch, right? Like the notion of sometimes you can have a really awesome game and the launch can kind of get in the way of it. You don't get to experience that great game the way you want to, and so I think these are two great people to represent that 90 rated game and then the ability to play it since it was launched. So it's awesome. And yeah, thank you so much to everybody who play. We just crossed 350 million hours of play, which is phenomenal and very exciting. So again, thank you so much. And part of this conversation, I think, really is about that. Like, what happens to a game that gets 350 million hours of play against it? And so, obviously when you're making the game, you can't apply 350 million hours of playtime against it to find, oh, maybe this balance isn't quite what we wanted, or this feature isn't working quite the way we want. And so we wanted to take this opportunity to kind of talk about, now that we've seen it out there by the way, it's only been 10 days. And, we talk about the Diablo 4. This launch is really just the beginning of our journey with Diablo 4. This is something we're going to support for years to come. We're working on seasons. We're working on expansions. Notice that was a plural word. And so all that stuff is going into the future. And so the fact that we love the feedback, we're on day 10, and and that's something that we're really this is the kind of stuff we're focused on. I do if I can stay on my soapbox for just 1 second. Can I stay on my soapbox?
Yes.
I do want to I think one of the conversations we can have is around the expectation around changes, because I find in a live service like this, in Tiffany's world, the notion of a hot fix, which is, how would you describe to somebody who maybe doesn't understand whenever Adam's we're doing another hot fix, what is a hot fix from a player's perspective?
So there's a lot of issues that we are able to hotfix on the server, whether it's server code or server data. And those are ones that generally we can turn around a little bit quicker. Obviously, we want to make sure that the fix is solid, doesn't break anything else in the game, that our QA team has an opportunity to run through it and ensure that if we roll it out, when we roll it out to the servers, to all of our players, that it actually improves the game and fixes the issue that we've come across. We also have the opportunity to do client fixes. Those ones are it requires an update to the actual player's client. In both cases, for the most part, they are seamless so that players can get that change while they're playing the game. I'm sure you've noticed sometimes when you're logging out that your Battle.net client will pick up an update, or you'll pick it up on your console. So the next time that you log in and play Diablo 4, you pick up that client update. Hotfixes are seamless. So as you're playing and you're doing server transitions, as you're going through the world, you'll automatically pick up that update. In both cases, should be seamless, and something that we work very, very hard on. Client fixes tend to take a little bit more time to get out to our players. We want to treat all of our players. I mean, I'm a console player myself. I know that Joe Shelley plays on console. Rod Ferguson plays on console.
And PC.
And PC. Super important that we get these fixes out to our players at the same time so that everyone that plays Diablo 4, regardless of how they're playing, can experience the same game and the same quality of experience.
I think for the client, what we call the client, so the way you're playing on your actual device, that because we support multiple platforms, we have to often go through certification, and so that's one of the things around pacing that we have to oftentimes pre-plan out what we're fixing. And so hot fixes are stuff we can kind of do on the fly. It doesn't require a certification pass. Again, it's meant to be seamless. So occasionally we'll have some hiccups but it's sort of philosophically, it's something that we decided as a team, that rather than bringing the whole game down for an hour to roll out a server change, we would do sort of this rolling changes. And 9 times out of 10, no issues. Occasionally, based on just the scale. Like we haven't worked at the scale before, and so sometimes when you're refreshing this number of servers with this number of players on it, we could hit a hiccup, and we've hit a couple, during launch that. But our intention is to keep the game up all the time and just try to. But that being said, like I said, we often want to plan well in advance because we have to like QA it. It's not like we can turn. That's one of the things. Like I feel like the feedback is like, I have this problem. I want to see it fixed tomorrow, and you're like, I would love to do that for you, but we have to go through CERT and we have to QA it and we have to do all this work. And so we already have a big, real patch coming. And so that's something that's gone through certification. It's out there. It's going to address a lot of things, including performance issues. And it's so big, we're actually talking about there's the potential we may actually choose to have a maintenance window and say, like, we're going to bring the whole game down, we're going to apply this big patch, and then we're going to bring it all back up. Like you have an artifact of said patch, do you not?
I do.
Am I ruining your agenda, by the way? Did I jump way ahead?
Slightly, but it's okay.
It's a campfire talk. It's a campfire chat.
Campfire chats. In fact, we have been working on a pretty large client patch.
Chonky patch.
It's very chonky. Chonky is the perfect way of describing it. That addresses a lot of things, and this right here is actually it's 13 pages, but it's not even done yet. But it is just an early preview of kind of what we're putting together. I have it here. We probably won't go into detail of it all,
Okay.
but we will have it posted, obviously, when the patch does actually hit. But we do have a lot of different topics we did want to talk about.
But which are
yes.
like this is, we're talking about
Exactly.
stuff that actually reacting to what's going on as opposed to things we already knew we wanted to fix.
And the other thing I wanted to at least let other people know is we were in this initial launch window, so hotfixes were coming super quick, at a rapid pace, because we're trying to, when you have this many players hitting the game, a lot of things kind of crop up, and we were wanting to kind of get those hotfixes out. Same with the small client patches. I know a lot of people are going but it said further bug fixes and stability. A lot of that stuff is on the back end to make sure things keep up with players, and we keep stability on the actual servers as players are playing over the weekend, and we have a lot of traffic and things like that. So,
Yeah, I think that's a good point. When we say something like further bug fixes and stability, that's not include. It's not like that bug fix includes a change to Whirlwind or something.
Yeah.
It's some bug with a name that is comprehensible to our engineers got fixed, right? And so it ends up not being very useful to go into a lot of detail about those. But anytime there's something that's oh, we changed the barbarian, that we call that out.
yeah, if there's player-facing stuff, we'll most definitely end up calling that out. In regards to some at least how launch has gone and feedback that we've gotten from the community, we've heard a lot of different topics within the community itself. People just chatting with us or hitting us up on social media.
I think it's one of the interesting aspects is I wanted to create this meme of we want a balanced game where there's no meta and every build is viable, and everybody's like, yay! And they're like, we've reduced the power of this class, and they're like, what's going on? Table flipping. You're like, what? We have a philosophy of as part of balancing the game, whether that be the world or the classes, there will be pluses and minuses that have to be applied to the game, and the notion of, oh look, I remember Destiny 2 had Loot Cave, and we're like, there's a Loot Cave, let's just sit here and farm loot, and we're having so much fun. It's Christmas morning all day long, and that can't persist. For the good of the game, that has to not exist at some point, right? And so that's a problem that they fixed, and you understand eventually why they did that. I think there's some of that when we have 350 million hours playing against the game, and we go across your intentions from a design perspective about how do you want players to be gaining XP and sort of growing their levels and kind of what is their path for. It felt like what we started to see was that a player pattern that was non-ideal. It was a player behavior that you wanted to sort of, that was being revealed through play, that amount of play.
Yeah, so that's generally true. The way I would talk about it is that, and we've talked about consistently throughout development, that our goal is to have a lot of choice for players,
Right.
both in terms of being able to having lots of good choices for where you're going to level or acquire loot, and also in terms of your character having lots of choices, right? And so, you know, sometimes people will say like, well, can't you, anytime something is too strong, can't you just buff everyone else?
Right.
And while in theory you can do that, when you have many classes and many builds, and you have one thing that is too strong, the process of buffing everything else, A, is likely to result in more balanced issues because you're changing many, many things at once. And B, you can very quickly run into a place where you have, you know, 65,000% on Whirlwind or something, you know, and it can get sort of crazy.
You're always just chasing that power.
So yeah, I mean, sometimes we have to make changes. We have to nerf things sometimes.
Sure.
But our philosophy is to prioritize improving choice by looking at things that are not working and making them better. Now, it hasn't felt like that in the last 2 weeks.
Right.
Right. You know, when I came here today, I was thinking about, I don't have a shirt like this, but I thought about like getting a shirt and then writing, it's time for the buffs on it.
We can make you one.
I didn't do that, but it is,
So
it
if
is
we have a
time for the
buff shirt, it
buffs.
has to be Adam.
Yeah.
You're never invited to one of these ever again.
But seriously, you know, I think we have some things we want to
Yes.
go over here.
We do.
That the community has called out through various formats, through videos and posts.
Videos, posts on our forums, which we really appreciate. Anyone who posts on our forums, we are completely scouring our forums for feedback and so forth. Posts on social media, on Reddit, conversations that people are having in videos. You know, sometimes we have content creators that are actually creating like videos that are talking about specific topics. So we've kind of compiled a good list of like hot topics that I think that the community has been wanting to hear more about, and we do want to go through those and actually talk about them a little bit more in detail. I think probably the biggest one I think that people have been talking about the most has been around dungeons. As you guys know, like we've had a few hot fixes, and by few I mean 4 in a row. Yes,
Yep.
Totally understand. Of hot fixes where we do where we had a line where we did mention that we were reducing like elite pack levels and so forth, or adjusting them specifically in certain dungeons, with the goal to be, you know, longer dungeons having more elite packs, and of course shorter ones having, you know, less than what a longer one would specifically have. But I would say like we've really gotten to kind of like a new baseline now of like where we are.
It seemed like it was a contrast thing. Like I think Joe can speak to, but like I think the expectation was, oh, nightmare dungeons are the end game. That's the place I'm going to go, you know, quote unquote farm. But right now, the normal dungeons, because the elite density is so high, it's better to farm a normal dungeon than it is a nightmare. And so they seemed like they were kind of slightly out of whack from that perspective. I don't know if that's a technical term, slightly out of whack, but.
Seen it many times.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. Is that accurate, or how do you feel?
Yeah, we had some cases where among side dungeons, some side dungeons had dramatically more elites than other side dungeons, and so it really felt like if you're thinking about efficiency, it only made sense to farm those.
Right.
But more broadly, I mean, you were talking about nightmare dungeons. Nightmare dungeons have, first off, actually, you know, the significant majority of our players haven't finished the campaign yet. So there are lots of players that are still playing through the campaign.
Right.
But many of the people who are watching this stream, in fact, and our dedicated players, play through content much more quickly.
Right.
And have been experiencing this situation with the dungeons, right? Sure. So going to Nightmare Dungeons, Nightmare Dungeons are explicitly set up to be highly replayable, right? Through the sigil affixes, through the variety of Nightmare Dungeons that are available, to the changes to monsters that occur inside them. Mm-hmm. And so we want them to be a great place to farm, including if you want to farm dungeons over and over. If
Right.
you want to loop dungeons, Nightmare Dungeons are set up to be good at doing that.
That's
right?
the intention.
Yeah. So what we're going to do there is we're going to increase the amount of XP that you get from Nightmare Dungeons. And our goal with this is to make Nightmare Dungeons more efficient to do than side dungeons.
Right.
Because they're designed to be more replayable.
And does that take into account, like, Nightmare Dungeons have essentially a travel time to get to them?
Right. So this is a great point. So in order to, when you think about efficiency, if you think about XP per hour or XP per minute, and we actually have telemetry on this so we can see what it looks like. You can't just look at the XP that you're getting from the Nightmare Dungeon, because you have to spend some of the time traveling to that Nightmare Dungeon. And in fact, Nightmare Dungeons are a variety of distances away from the nearest waypoint
Right.
or teleport. So it actually varies depending on which Nightmare Dungeon you're going to.
Right.
And so that can also have the effect, if you're thinking about the efficiency aspect of it, of XP per hour or loot per hour,
Right.
of sort of making it hard to justify choosing a Nightmare Dungeon that's far from a teleport point.
Sure.
So the second thing that we're going to do here is we're going to modify the way that sigils work so that they teleport you to Nightmare Dungeons on use.
So they teleport you, or do they create a place to, a waypoint to the dungeon?
They will create a waypoint that allows you to teleport. But yes, you'll be able to teleport to. That's an important distinction.
Right.
But the effect is that you'll be able to teleport to your Nightmare Dungeons, and you'll be able to loop from the end of a Nightmare Dungeon into your next Nightmare Dungeon. If you want to loop them
Right.
again, you may have to leave the Nightmare Dungeon using an interface, but you'll be able to go from Nightmare Dungeon to Nightmare Dungeon without traveling between them.
Right.
And that allows us to have the XP, calculate the XP buff to make sure that those are the most efficient to do, because we're removing the travel time aspect of it.
Okay, so we're improving the rewards from Nightmare Dungeons to make them more what the intention was. That's the place you farm.
Yeah.
We're removing the need to have a travel time, because a waypoint will appear and you and your party can go there, so it shortens it.
Right.
Like the waypoint one in particular sounds like a reasonably large change. So from a player perspective, what should expectations be about, hey, that sounds awesome, or at least for me, I'm responding, that sounds awesome. I don't know if they agree yet, but I think that sounds awesome. So what kind of timing, what range of timing are you thinking?
It is, you know, Tiffany was just talking about like the kinds of things that we can do very quickly and easily.
This isn't supposed to be one of
It's
them.
a little, but this is something that's really important to many of our most dedicated players. And so we're working very hard on this right now, actually, and yesterday as well, to get it in before Season 1 launches.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so I know Tiffany and the live ops team I know have been working really tough on working a lot to make sure that we can get specific updates before Season 1 and scheduling those out and everything. So yeah, the Nightmare Dungeon changes that Joe was just talking about, the goal is to have that out before Season 1 so players can actually experience it and use sigils to really teleport to Nightmare Dungeons and use that as a way of kind of incentivizing. And with Nightmare Dungeons XP being buffed, and it should be the way that players end up needing to want to kind of grind or farm specific things, they have the Nightmare Dungeon options.
So, and then for people who are maybe not following along all the time, right now Season 1, we're saying mid to late July.
Mid to late July.
So we're saying that this change could happen anytime between, in the next, 4 weeks or whatever.
Correct.
So that's what we're focused on. But again, I think that the waypoint teleportation, we have to get that right. Like there's a lot that goes on there. So there's a bunch of QA we have to do to make sure we don't mess with parties and everything else, right? So we want to go as quickly as possible, but we also have to go as safely as possible. The last thing we want to do is rush something. So I use the phrase, don't shake the jello, which is a notion of like your jello mold is trying to set, and if you keep poking it, it won't ever stabilize, it won't ever set. And that's kind of the thing we worry about here, is that with all that, what are we at, hotfix 9 we've put out so far?
We're actually at 11.
We are at 11.
Sorry, I missed one. And with also our client patches, like we're constantly sort of poking, and if you do that without proper QA and proper testing to make sure you're not shaking something out of alignment, because I think we've had that where we've maybe rushed a patch and then that caused something else to slightly not go the way we want. So that's something we want to be as responsive as possible, but we also want to be as safe as possible and make sure we're not causing other issues.
Yeah, I mean,
Shout out to Hotfix 11 for fixing some of the things that we may have done ourselves.
We may have broken the previous one.
the teleport should take you to the dungeon and not under the world or
Yes.
Exactly.
in front of Lilith. Something.
Major shout out to our QA team because we have put out, I think as you just said, 11 hotfixes and I want to say 8 or 9 client patches. So definite kudos to them.
Yes.
Speaking of season 1,
Yeah.
I am looking forward to it. I'm a Necro player as well, I believe Rod is, so definitely looking through that chonky patch to make sure that my class gets buffed, as Joe said. But I've been collecting
Now,
renown.
you just promised. You realize what you just did.
Yes.
Right?
This is
You
why I
just
need the
promised
Well,
necro buffs
well
to
now
people.
Joe has to do it
I
because
know.
I
Is
said
that
it.
how it works?
Yes, it is how it
Oh,
works.
okay, great.
I didn't tell him that, but now he knows. I'm looking forward to season 1. I am curious because I think a lot of the community is curious, will I have to recollect all those altars of Lilith? Do I get to carry over those primary stat bonuses that I'm earning? What about my map? Don't really want to have to rediscover it. So Rod, what's season 1 going to look like for me when I roll a rogue?
When you roll a rogue, well, I mean, one of the cool things you and I both experienced a lot with our necro play is the blighted corpse problem, right?
Yes.
Which is the, I think
I
Josh
don't know if
calls
that's
them.
one of the cool things.
Well, no, it is a cool thing. I think Josh calls them corpse farts, but like he's like, I'm trying to get
All
through this
right.
with corpse farts. It's not my favorite term, but anyway, but we know that the opaqueness of that effect is sometimes can be an explosion waiting for you underneath there, and you can die.
It is a bug, yes. That is one of the things we are fixing.
I'm just
Yes.
like judoed that question.
Yes, you
back
totally
to
did.
it.
And I actually care a lot about this because I use Blighted Corpse on my Necro. That is included in one of our upcoming patches. It is a bug. I know there was some discussion of like, is this intentional? It's not intentional. We will be fixing it and making it a little bit easier in general to be able to see which of the dangerous effects on the ground, making sure that's always readable to the player. So making sure our sort order is correct. If there's a fire enchanted, which is it's the affix that always gets me, that I can definitely see it because right now with all the corpse farts on the ground,
See how easy it is to just say.
now that is canon. I can. It's very difficult for me to see a lot of the affixes or some of the enemy or PvP fire on the ground. So
Sure.
looking forward to those changes. But yes, going back to season 1.
Renown. Yeah, I think the big thing that we're seeing, one of the big questions I think, especially new players, if you've played Diablo 3 before, you're familiar with the seasonal kind of reset. That idea of like, oh, it's a new season. There may be new balances, especially like in Diablo 3, they changed how sets work and all these sorts of things. There's an interesting like, oh, I want to go back and experience this, whatever new changes are in the season or new mechanics. And that's still true in Diablo 4, that idea that there's that sense of progression and going back and trying something new, experiencing the new mechanics in the world from a new place because otherwise it becomes this huge sort of power creep. But obviously, part of the feedback is people now are starting to complete the campaign and they're starting to look forward to season 1 coming mid to late July. They're wondering, like, wait, when we talk about resets, how do I think about the renown system in particular? And so one of the things, what will happen is that I think we started off in one place and we're kind of ending up in another place, which is kind of interesting. Is we started off from hey, we want as much of that feeling of progression as possible. So rediscovering things isn't that bad because you're like, oh, I get to do this really cool. But I think we're starting to feel with alt characters that notion of, oh, the fog of war between characters doesn't feel great. And like the Lilith altars doesn't necessarily feel great. And so that's something we're going to do. And we'll be continuing to evaluate what should and shouldn't be reset as part of that. Much like once you complete the campaign on one character on your account, you can skip campaign for every character from there on through every season. And I think basically, I guess I won't promise expansions, but I believe expansions too. Not to lock stuff in too early. But that notion that you only have to complete, that's kind of the thinking we have. So right now for Renown, what we're talking about is as we go into season 1, when the amount of the fog of war that you've lifted on your map, the amount of the map that you've exposed going into the season in the Eternal Realm will be what you see in the season. So you don't have to go and reveal the map again. And the only capital city waypoints, I think, will be active, much like it is now. So, but you'll see them. They'll just be gray. So because there's so much renown you get for claiming one, we still want you to go claim that waypoint. And then there's also the Altars of Lilith, which is basically, those will stay as well. You don't have to rediscover them every season. And that's always been true, the notion around the benefits you get from a Altar of Lilith, like +2 intelligence or +2 dex, those stay with you forever, much like the renown system of the the extra potion charge or the extra obol capacity. Those stay with you too. You don't have to go get those skill points, go get those potion charges. Those go with you. And what's kind of cool is that what we're talking about is we'll preload you that renown. So, right, so if I could get, I'll make up a number, this is totally made up, 1,000 renown through Fog of War clearance, when I start up season 1, my map will be clear like it is in the Eternal Realm, and I'll already have 1,000 renown in my...
Right, your renown screen will still show, fog, there are this many areas of the map to be discovered.
Right.
It will just give you credit for the ones that you already discovered, and that will translate into starting the season if you have been playing previously on a character with some amount of renown.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it. And our intention, so those are the base of the two major that you get credit for. Like we're going to...
Altars and fog.
Altars and fog. So side quests, those are something that still reset. But we're looking into the future, maybe that's something else we could potentially do.
Potentially, I mean, it's something that I think we'll continue to evaluate. Like, some things are fun to do every season, and some things are, after you do them a few times, you feel like, why do I have to do this again? And I mean, I think that's something that it's pretty clear on exploring the map and the Altars of Lilith.
Yeah.
I think it's less clear on some of those other things.
I know as one personal preference. I mean, when I skip campaign on a new character, I kind of use the side quest to kind of create my own campaign playthrough. Like it gives me a little more direction. So I actually, again, one person, but I actually like being able to play through the side stories again.
Yeah. And so, just to re-clarify on the Altars of Lilith, obviously players who, and how it works right now is if you collect an Altar of Lilith, you get the stat bonuses or whatever bonuses that you have, and those carry over. But now with the additional changes, it will be showcased. The ones that you've actually visited already will now showcase on your map already. So it ends up at least covering off of that, of course. And then, as Rod mentioned, the Fog of War items will be kind of carried over, or not carried over, but removed from as you kind of create new characters. And in terms of timing, I guess for some of these, when were we kind of looking for?
That's season 1, right? So it would be...
Yeah, we're looking to get that for season 1. An interesting point here is that that change will also affect alts after it goes in.
Oh, nice. Perfect. Yeah.
So alts after season 1 will have the same benefit.
Yeah.
Nice. Very cool. Well, I know I'm slowly getting through my list here. Pull out the cookies.
What I want, to say, you want some energy cookies, you want some s'mores? I think one of the things that I'm especially encountering too is in the dungeons, when you're going through and clearing dungeons, probably at least the bottom row of my inventory, it tends to be the gems I've collected along the way. And I know that creates some tension, in terms of when to go back and those sorts of things. So I know they're the quick answer is always I want a gem tab, or how do I put a different place to put those? But it sounds like we're doing something and we're thinking about it differently.
Yeah, we're looking at inventory tension, essentially, things that fill up your... It's the design. Yeah, it's a design term. Anyway, it's basically stuff that clutters up your inventory.
Sure.
And important, awesome stuff that we built and has all kinds of interesting gameplay, but has the effect of taking up lots of space.
Sure.
Like gems.
Perfect segue.
I got there.
We got there. For example, random idea, gems.
Like gems. This is why it's a campfire chat. We're establishing the baseline expectations.
Oh,
for
no,
Campfire
yeah,
Chat.
yeah.
I think we should just go low.
Yeah, we can
While
only
we're
go
not
so
answering the
low.
question, I still haven't got these cookies open, so I'm making noise
so-
while you're thinking.
When we think about gems,
Still didn't get it.
there are many colors of gems, there are many qualities of gems, and this can have the effect of taking up lots of inventory space. So what we're looking to do, and this is a longer, we talked about fixes that have different time horizons. This is a longer term one. We're looking to get it in around season 2.
Oh, okay.
The idea is to change the way you acquire gems so that they are show up in your materials or currency tab rather than in inventory.
Oh, like when you collect veiled crystals. So rather than it
Right.
even being a thing that you collect in an inventory, it's now just part of your materials.
Right, and then the way that will work is you go to craft your gem in the same way that you do today, and you just use a certain amount of that material. So it's similar to the amount of equivalent like actual gem inventory slots that you're using now,
Right.
but as materials, and you can use that to craft the gem that goes into
It's kind of a win-win because it's saving you inventory space, but it's also saving you stash space. Because right now, I'm just like filling up my stash with gems.
Yeah.
But now if it's just materials I'm carrying, but like something there's been discussion around while we're on materials is that there's this notion of, oh, I didn't understand there was caps. Like I am not as hardcore to have 10,000 veiled crystals, but I know some people out there are, and they're realizing like, oh, you can only carry 10,000, and there isn't a way to put veiled crystals into the stash or whatever to do with it. Like, what is the thinking around caps? Because sometimes it's like, oh, we were trying to force you to go do an action. We like much like the opals thing now, like, oh, you go roll something because your more opals are falling, but I don't think that it doesn't feel like that's the same for veiled crystal. As an example, veiled crystal, like how do you think about caps and materials?
Yeah, the caps, the materials aren't, there's no particular reason to cap the veiled crystals at 10,000. We're just going to make that bigger.
Yeah, so we're upping the material caps for that, which we've seen a lot of players, especially players that are like level 90 plus. As you're going through dungeons, you're obviously gonna naturally just pick up a lot of gear, and you're gonna salvage a lot of that as well. So you're gonna get to those specific caps that are currently in the game. So I know a lot of those changes are going to be really beneficial to players who put in a decent amount of hours on those characters, or even if they're already at max level at 100 and they're still farming gear or looking for gear on those characters.
And the time horizon on the lifting of the caps?
I think we have that in
That's actually
that's coming before
before
season
season
one,
one.
right?
So that one we will be changing before season
That's
one.
right.
And it'll be incorporated in some and an update.
A future planned update.
Future planned update.
Before season
Because
1.
you love them. You just love rolling those out.
Just like sweating. I know this has actually been an interesting conversation also that I did want to bring up is we've had a lot of people, especially like content creators and others that have kind of been a little confused on how things like resistances actually currently work within the game. I think there's a lot of people that are actually prioritizing other benefits on gear or stats right now over resistances because they're a little confused on how it works, or they feel that it may not be working at all.
I certainly do that with gems. Like I certainly would rather use my emerald for thorns than like whatever the reduction, like plus 14% resistance, whatever. Like I know my instincts are to go to the more tangible thing initially, and I guess sometimes it can be subtle that people don't pick up on the one-to-one. Like, hey, I know exactly how this is affecting my play. Like, is that?
Yeah, the resistance case is one where the system has a lot of different inputs, and there are some of those have multiplicative scaling, and we have sort of some things we want to accomplish with that system too. We want to encourage players to get more resistances as they go up higher in world tiers, which is why there's an effect on your resistances as you go up in world tiers.
Oh, that might be clear to some people. It's like that. So basically, as you move up in world tier, your current level of resistances will get sort of
Right.
and so that you have to kind of reacquire that resistance.
Yeah, and what we're seeing right now is that because of the way all of these, there's also an effect where your armor provides physical resistance and also provides half that amount of elemental resistances. And because all of these things are interacting in a complex way, it can be hard for people to figure out exactly how they work.
Right.
But regardless of that, the way that it is working in practice is meaning that resistances are less valuable than we would like them to be.
Sure.
And because it's a fairly complex interaction, this is something that's going to take a little bit more time to sort of dial in the right solution for.
Right. But they're still valuable in the short term. It's not like they're like not worth it at all.
Yeah.
Like,
What happens is as you get up into higher amounts of resistance and higher world tiers, you're seeing the value drop off more than we intend for
Got
it.
it.
And so that's where we're going to see some changes.
Right. And so because we need to go slow on that kind of a complex change, what are you thinking from a time horizon on that?
That's going to be something that we see around season 2.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's also managing expectations. The reason why you hear things like, hey, we found something, or we're hearing something, and we're talking already about season 2, which again, we're talking about quarterly seasons, so that's going to be in the fall. Like, why wouldn't you get into season 1? I don't understand. Well, we're like pretty much finishing up season 1 right now. In order to be able to put it through certification, the way that we do our release candidate testing, like we need to be ahead of the game. And the fact that we're only, let's say it's mid to late July and we're already sort of mid-June, so we're like 4 weeks away. It can take a couple weeks to get through cert and everything else. So you kind of have to be out in front of this stuff. And so that's what I was trying to set in one of the official dev streams and managing expectations. When we find something, we're like, it's not a hot fix worthy thing or something we can't even hot fix because it's not just like changing a variable on a server. It's something that is a complex system that requires real work. It may come a little bit later than you're thinking because of the fact that we have to be so ahead of the game in developing this content for you. So that's why you're hearing stuff like season 2 means season 1 is pretty much done. I mean, it's done from a development perspective, and now it's in the QA and certification phase. So that's why we talk about season 2 as the next sort of window to put stuff out like this.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are going. I'm seeing chat now going like, why not season 1? Why not season 1? And it's the perfect explanation for it, because in the end of the day, you have to button something up to get it ready for people to actually play it, and we obviously have to do a lot of testing for it, certification and so forth. So just a reminder for everyone, like, development is a process. It's
An iterative process.
An iterative process for sure.
That's also a good point. When we think about seasons, one of the things that we think is most important is delivering new content.
Right.
Because that is new stuff for everyone. Like, if we want to make sure that every season is delivering new content, and then on top of that, bring in important fixes, bring in some quality of life improvements. And so, I know that I've seen some lists, like people have helpfully made like some lists, like here are a bunch of quality of life fixes that we would like, or that would help me, as a player. So I think what you'll see is that over time, as seasons roll out, you're going to see those. Like we've been talking about with season 1 and season 2, you're going to continue to see those things. You're not going to see a season that's like, sorry, we didn't make any content, but here's a bunch of fixes.
Yeah, and
because we think the content is really important.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Is like Diablo 4 just launched. And we have a lot of stuff planned for the game.
Yeah, and I've had some comments on Twitter where people are like, well, D3 has this thing and D4 doesn't have this thing, and I'm like, well, D3 has been out there for 10 years, iterating and improving, and like D4 has been out there for 10 days. And so like that doesn't mean it's not going to show up. It doesn't mean the iteration and evolution of these things aren't going to continue. Like we're going to keep evolving the game, as fast as we can, and as safely as we can through seasons and hotfixes and patches and expansions. So just because there's something not there today doesn't mean there's no intention to put it there in the future.
Yeah, we definitely evaluate the level of effort and the amount of risk for all of the changes, and that's kind of how we determine, is this hot fixable, like Is it something that needs to be fixed and addressed on the live environment right now? Is it something that would be better to wait until our next planned release vehicle, whether that's Season 1 or Season 2, throwing out some production terms there. And we want to just, like Joe was saying, it's super important that we deliver quality seasons with tons of great content to our players. So it's also super important that we don't rush something out and break the game where it becomes not playable, not viable, or not so fun anymore. So definitely taking all the feedback. We have a very, very long list of things that we want to get to. And like Rod was saying, you know, I worked on D3 for many years, and we improved it over time. And I'm actually looking forward to the point where we can start putting in a lot of those improvements that people are asking for to get it to a super, super polished game that makes everybody happy. It's pretty close.
Agreed. I know one thing that has been kind of a hot topic within the community because a lot of players are playing hardcore, and we have seen some, whether it could be a disconnect or a player might be dying, you know, randomly on their own accord, or you know, maybe they have a service issue or something from their side. I know that there's like a lot of questions related to disconnection, death protection, and so forth. I know it's a thing that we've been looking at. And we've been looking at everyone's clips, even the painful ones where we're like, oh no, that's awful, and so forth. But I know we've been looking at potentially doing some work on that from that end.
Yeah, so there are a few cases here. There are, we've seen some cases where a hardcore hero died during teleport, which is a bug. We've seen potentially some bugs with situations where you should be immune, but you might have died. We're investigating both of those cases, and once we have identified the root cause, we'll tackle fixes for that. You also mentioned cases where the player disconnects, right? These can be some of the most frustrating situations for a hardcore player because in many cases it is completely outside of your control. It could be an issue with anywhere between you and the server, right?
Yeah.
So those can be especially frustrating. And we have already a mechanism in the game that allows players to escape from boss fights that has very strict controls on it in terms of being a consumable item that's a fairly rare drop, which is called the Scroll of Escape. This is a hardcore-only item. It's a consumable scroll. You can use it at any time and teleport to safety. You can bind it to your mouse wheel. It's important to bind it to the...
It's very important to bind it. I do recommend binding it so that you don't run into an issue where you might potentially use like an emote
instead of your. I mean, you go out with style. I mean, like
Yes.
you know, you're going out emoting while you're being killed.
So we have this mechanism already to allow players to try out something that's extremely difficult in hardcore, and that allows us to have things in hardcore that are very challenging.
Right.
Because without something like this, as a hardcore hero who's invested, you know, hundreds of hours, why would I go and do something where I might die?
Yeah.
There's certainly lots of risk there, and it's very exciting.
Right.
But I mean, I could just get a little stronger first,
Sure.
right? So we think that the scroll allows for even more exciting moments.
Scroll of nope. You're like nope.
And this is the place where, because it has these controls in terms of being consumable and being a rare drop,
Right.
this is the place where we want to add disconnect protection. So basically, the way that this will work is, if you get disconnected, and this is essentially for any reason, and
Oh, so
and
like
I
even
wanna,
if your cat pulls the Wi-Fi router out of the
yes.
wall.
Now I want to clarify that
Because a dog would never do
it's
that.
not
That's true. Only cats.
the disconnect case is a very complex situation in terms of determining what's happening.
Sure.
So this is not perfect situation.
Okay. Lightning
I'm
strike
not
on the
going to
telephone
guarantee
pole may not trigger. the escape.
100%. But what should happen is that when we detect that you've disconnect. If you have one of these scrolls of escape in your inventory, it will trigger, even though you weren't there to trigger it. It will consume the scroll, so you can't just do this as much as you want.
Right.
And it will teleport you to safety.
Right.
So when you log back in after the lightning has subsided, you should be in town.
Should be, yeah. Should
Just
be
have scrolls. Because they are a limited resource, like obviously. Like
Well, part of it, you have to stop abuse, right? You don't want
Exactly.
people like using disconnects as ways to do things. It's the same thing, I think, when we were talking about the sigil change, is that one of the concerns, if we didn't put the right rules around it, is that if a sigil automatically teleported me somewhere, I could use that to escape hard content, you know? And so that we always have to, that's part of it. It's not everything is intuitively like, oh, I instantly get it, go do that. You have to go like, wait, there's a bunch of edge cases and things that this can be abused, and we have to manage that too, so. Okay, that sounds good. So I'm Mr. What's the time window on that, Joe? That's my role now on this. Campfire Chat is Rod. Like, when are you getting that done?
I think this is a selfish
That
question.
is also a season 2 time frame for the disconnect protection.
Yeah.
Some of the bugs that I mentioned earlier in terms of cases where immunity, there could be a problem with immunity, or a teleport, a death during loading screen or something. Those are things that we're investigating right now.
It could be hotfixed, but
it could be sooner than that.
Yeah, those could be sooner, and then the scroll of escape with disconnection protection would end up being season 2. So,
Okay.
cool. All right, I know I got a few more. Sorry, I know I want to make sure we hit on all these topics. This is obviously really important for the community, and I know that they want to hear about them and so forth. But
Why are my caches higher level than me?
yes, that is a very popular one. Why are my caches higher level than me? I can't open my
even
cache.
open the
I
cache.
killed
I
the
wanna know
world
what's in the
boss,
cache.
but I can't open the cache.
What's in the cache, Joe?
This is a bug. So in a before season 1, in an upcoming
A
fix.
planned patch.
Yes, that's right.
In the plan patch?
Plan patch.
You will be able to
in
open
the 13 pager? Is that what
in a planned patch. you will be able to open caches from world bosses. Now, the gear that's in those caches may still be higher level,
At least
but
you can
there's
sell it. Or
and there's a variety of things you can salvage.
Right.
Some of the stuff in the caches isn't gear. You'll be able to use that immediately.
But at least you can open it and see what's inside.
Yeah.
And it gives you something to work toward. You're like, oh, this thing that's amazing is 3 levels higher than me. I'm going to go get up to that level and use that gear, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
I know. So scaling is a huge topic. I'm just diving right
Is
in.
it maybe too huge? Is that where you're going? What are we doing?
Well, scaling is a big topic. I think players have talked a lot about, like, hey, the world scaling with
Right.
you and the sense of power that you have. I think one thing that we actually talked about earlier, I think addresses some of the scaling questions we have, which was like nightmare dungeons are that way of also feeling more powerful as you're kind of progressing through them, because you can obviously go into higher level nightmare dungeons, and you'll be able to slowly but surely, get your way through higher and higher level versions of that. The other thing, though, I think, and I've seen this a lot personally myself, where people have been going like, hey, I might be like a level 25 druid, but level 18 gear is dropping. And there's a lot of like attachment to item level, or to the actual level required.
Focus on the wrong number?
Yeah, as opposed to the item power. And I think it's a topic I wanted to bring up, just because item power is actually really the number that people should be really focusing on, as opposed to specifically item level, because there are points where you will actually potentially find a higher item level requirement with a lower item power itself. And that's one thing I think that will help with people when they're focusing on trying to become more powerful, is really going for item power, focusing on that specific number in itself, because I know a lot of people have been discussing it online and everything.
And that's why I guess when you upgrade at the vendor, like the item power is what's getting upgraded. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of nice sometimes that you can get a slightly higher item power on a slightly lower level item, because it gives that lower level character a bit of a bump and those sorts of things.
Yeah, the item, the required level for an item does loosely correlate with the power of the item in most cases. But there are many situations where that is not accurate.
Right.
And so it's better to look, as Adam was saying, at
Yep.
the item power of an item.
I mean, Adam brought up Druid. So one of the things I know I hear quite a bit about is there's a thing where you get into uniques and discussions that like barb uniques are falling for druids, and so what's the issue there?
Yeah, there are a couple bugs where certain barb uniques can drop for druids that we're fixing. And that's going to come in before. I see where you're going here.
I know. You know what I was going to say. So when's that happening, Joe?
It's going to come in before Season 1
Okay.
in a planned patch.
So within the next 4 weeks.
But when
Ish.
I'm playing a class, Joe, can I expect to occasionally see uniques or legendaries drop for other classes?
Yeah, you will. That's a really good point. It's these changes are not. You will never ever see anything for another class.
Right.
It's that there are some specific barb uniques that were meant to drop only for barb, but due to a bug are also dropping for druid, and we're correcting those.
Got it. Okay. Awesome.
And I know we just mentioned this, but in a future update, don't hate me, Ted. A future hotfix is what we'll say for right now. A future hotfix is when we plan on.
Yeah,
this.
you're right. You're right. That's right.
Social features, looking for group, looking like type of features has been a topic. Some people who may not be in like a clan or something like that, or choose not to actually join a clan, or maybe some of their friends or their normal friends are usually logged off during a specific time. Trying to find other people to maybe like join in with you during dungeons and stuff like that can be a little bit of a challenge. We've been hearing a lot of feedback on that. I know that the team obviously is looking into future social features for the game itself. We just need more iteration time, more time to actually think about how we want that to actually be available, how accessible it should be, and so forth for players to be able to jump into some dungeons with maybe randos or something like that if they want to, or if they're looking for it. I know it's a topic that a lot of people have been talking about, but we are looking into it in terms of items.
I think crossplay adds complexity too. Like that's
Yes.
why, again, it's one of those things where you want to make the right choices and take the time to do it right. And it did feel like as a social features, it felt like it's one of those great places to evolve and iterate into. So I think that's a large bucket of features that I could see as we continue to improve quality of life over all the seasons. I could see like social features are just going to get better and better and better over time.
Yep. And the other big thing that I know that some PC players have experienced have been a little bit of some like performance and like stability items. It's a team that we have like this graphics engineering team that has been like hardcore like slamming into the problem itself and trying to figure out exactly all the different cases and all the different scenarios. We actually do have some fixes and some items that we're addressing here and some upcoming client patches that will be hitting players. So it should help out with a lot of those specific scenarios or those instances that players are actually running into. And again, if you guys actually have any of those issues on your end, feel free to post those in our forums. We scour those, all throughout the day. It's customer service, it's QA, it's community, and we're actually providing all this information over to those teams. Giving as much information as possible is huge, as opposed to like, hey, my computer's not performing very well while I'm playing Diablo 4. If you can give us, extra information, computer specs, etc., where it may have occurred, and details and so forth, it
The
helps
DX
us a lot.
diag on the forums is really helpful.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, sometimes there's expectations around how much memory do I actually need, how much VRAM do I actually need, and sometimes like actually because of the way we do seamless server transitions, sometimes if there's if we're doing some maintenance or there's something going on, you could see what you call rubber banding could actually be just a slight delay in the server transition and not actually be related to the game's performance. It may actually just be a networking handoff between servers. So there is no one blanket. I think there's a lot of we run on very low end, which like being able to go all the way down to Gen 8 to going to very high, and each one of them have their own different sets of requirements. And we know that by setting your settings correctly can help you a lot too, like playing with like what is this texture level, does it help or hurt, those kinds of things. But that 13-page document that Adam has in his hand does contain a lot of performance improvements as well. So, but we feel really good about where we are, but we do know that there are some issues with specific cases, and the more information we get about them, the more likely we are to be able to address them.
Yep, most definitely. I know, so yeah, there's a ton of different bug fixes and so forth that are still coming down the line, and we plan on addressing all of those. Again, continue using our forums to actually give us that info. I know we do want to take some questions from chat and so forth from Twitch chat. I will do my best to actually announce names. I will announce the names so people know that they can go back into chat and see the names and not go like, oh my gosh,
You made up those
you
names.
made up these names.
Those aren't
and
real
so
names.
Forth. And I will note that was not our interview. So that like we did not come up with that question.
Pretty good.
But yeah, I do want to take some questions from chat itself.
Joe, you
As we're kind of like,
I will.
I had one. I was actually kind of disappointed.
Well, you know, you
participate.
have high expectations.
No, he eats Outback.
So you're saying you wouldn't want another one?
Outback is so good. Tiff and I have this thing about Outback Steakhouse. It's fantastic. I know, I'm okay.
He needs to read the questions.
Yes, I do need to read the questions. I do plan on going through at least some of the questions and continue asking questions as they're coming in. We actually have the community team is actually going through. Huge shout out to the community team. They're in the chat and they're actually going through and polling questions so that I can see them because chat is moving very fast. Let's see. In terms of, let's see.
You didn't start with the name.
Oh yeah, I need to start with the name. I'm sorry. This is a party play question, and it's from, oh gosh, I have to pronounce the names. Necrologics says.
That's so hard. Necrologics.
Well, I'm hoping it sounds.
Why are you
like
like
that.
sounding it out like a 4-year-old? The necrologics. Why is that so hard?
I mean, it's like logics or something. Can we teleport to people without going to town first? Is that can be an option in the future?
So we're carefully looking at the teleporting. We want it to be easy to meet up with friends. The waypoint in town is our normal way to move to places.
I don't know that everybody knows this, by the way, because I've had to explain it to people. That it's actually, once you know what it is, like I get if you know it, you're saying like, can I optimize it? But if you don't know about it, like it's really cool that when you join your friend's game, I'm giving Joe time to eat his s'mores. When you join your friend's game, you might be in a separate place of the map than they are. If you go to the capital city or any of the capital cities, they will have a portal to them waiting to the side. So you were like, oh, I want to join your game. Oh, where are you? Oh, I'm somewhere over here. Just hit down in your D-pad. Then you're next to a portal that has their name on it. You click on it and now, or press A, and then you're with them. And so it's been great at playing with parties where you just go like, hey, just press down your D-pad, jump in the portal, and you're with us. And so I get that might not, it's not like a direct, but it's like it's a layover. It's a you have one stop on your way to where you're going. Anyway, so I interrupted your answer to give you time to eat your cookie, but are you thinking about optimizing so you can do more direct teleport?
It's something we'll keep an eye on.
Okay.
We aren't planning to change that right now, but it's this, as Tiffany was saying earlier, this is a game where we are continuing to support it and provide things for years to come.
Sure.
And that will mean that the game evolves over that time as well.
Yep.
We have a question from Old Greg's Place. I think that's an easy name.
That was a good one.
Yeah, there's an underscore after Greg's though.
You don't have to
but,
pronounce
yeah,
it.
I don't want to go like place.
Underscore.
Are you guys planning to buff any kind of resource generation, be it from passive or gear?
So we have a variety of buffs coming in a future patch to many things across many classes.
The internet now. Thanks for that. I'm just saying you alluded to buffs, but we're not being specific. So now it's going to be a lot of speculation, which is
That's
great.
true. It's in the top secret document that Adam has.
A lot of this.
Okay.
Builds, including builds that use that have issues with resource generation, should keep an eye out for things that address that. I want to be careful here though, because resource generation is one of those stats that can very quickly invalidate resource use entirely.
Okay, yeah.
It's very easy for to end up in a situation where you have resource generation that exceeds any possible resource costs. And while that can be fun in certain situations, like it can be fun to have situations where you feel like you're breaking the game, if it's generally true for everyone, the game ends up being less interesting because you have fewer interesting choices.
Yeah, there's no trade-offs, yeah.
There's a lot of people still mentioning mob density and so forth in chat, and I do want to just at least clarify to them because, like, obviously, you know, we've made tweaks and so forth, and we talked about this earlier, but we made tweaks in terms of like elite mob packs and dungeons and so forth. But we now have established a baseline, and that from that baseline, like we move up. It's not a oh, this like we're going to continue going down or something like that. So
Joe and I had this conversation recently. Just like it's a combination, and you know, correct me if I get this wrong, but it's not just about like, oh, as we think about Nightmare Dungeons and rewards, it's not always going to be like, oh, this one monster is now worth 1 million experience points. There may be times where you want that to be 5 monsters that are worth 200,000 experience points. Like density is a factor of XP per minute, and as well as the actual value of the individual monsters, and so that'll be something that you all are picking knobs on. Yeah.
It's something we're continuing to look at. To clarify, the changes to XP that you'll see before Season 1 will increase the XP that you're getting per monster, per elite monster in Nightmare Dungeons.
Right.
It won't increase the total number of monsters in Nightmare Dungeons. That also can also called the density. But that is something that, as a result of the changes that we had to establish a baseline, we do have the ability to tune in the future.
Right.
Yep. Are you guys planning to continue quarterly update style?
Name? Who's asking?
Oh, sorry. Nupu Games. Are you planning to continue to the quarterly update style for upcoming expansions and systems or such? I personally love the updates. That's something to look forward to for every quarter since BlizzCon 2019. We will still be having a lot of developer update live streams. And those, like for instance, our next one will be about Season 1 when you guys do actually.
I kind of, so I'll speak as one person. I kind of like, not necessarily, well, Campfire Chat aside, I kind of like the more active stream to a 9-page blog personally. And so having dev streams where we can show cool features and talk about them and interact a little bit more versus go read this novel. Like, I like them. I love what we did. I love the transparency because we couldn't necessarily do streams before. But if I had to choose between an 8-page blog and a 45-minute stream, I would choose this stream, but that's just me.
And we still will have blogs around like seasons and announcements and so forth. That's still a thing. So expect to see more live streams, of course, and more campfire chats and everything related to that. Will we get the expanded option to change our character's appearance within the game? Oh, got it. Guts Claymore asked this question. Thank you, Guts. Will we get more options to change our character's appearance within the game? Don't want to make a new character just to change my character's face, hairstyle, etc.
So there are some options for re-customizing your character through the wardrobe. You can't change everything about the character there. That's something that we'll continue to look at ways that we can improve over time. You can also expect to see new options for markings and jewelry and things like that, and obviously armor and things.
Yeah, in the shorter term, there'll probably be more. When you do a character create, there'll be more options. Like as we go through, but
yeah.
The notion of actually like once you've rolled your character and you're level 60, right now because you can't like change, say, your hairstyle. That's probably a later down the road. That's not that. Our biggest thing we want to do is get more hairstyles into the character creator before we're actually is more higher priority than the ability to change your hair after the fact.
Yeah, but we do. I mean, I can go and get a haircut and have a different hairstyle. I don't have to roll a new me. So I understand. I understand.
Some of us would like to roll a new me if I had to get my haircut.
I understand the question, the desire, the goal.
Oh no, and we all agree with the goal. We're just saying in terms of priorities.
Are we going to add a completed side quest tab?
Who's asking?
Who's asking?
Oh, sorry, I'm so bad at this. It's because
at least we all agree on something.
Well, it's like in a different font color, and you just like immediately move off from it. And it's a really hard name. Burn 1 N9 M4N. There we go. I'm just gonna read it out like that because I'm not gonna butcher the
You
name.
put the forethought to actually look at those leet spellings in case it actually says something you shouldn't say out loud. Have you thought about?
Well, if I just say it by number or whatever, as opposed to
You're
saying
safe.
that,
Okay.
then I'm okay. Are you gonna add a completed side quest tab to the journal?
We want to improve the things that the journal, or that not necessarily the journal specifically, but that can be tracked through the UI over time to allow more situations where maybe you see something in the game and you want to go back and look at it in the future over time. That's future plans.
I mean, the thing too, I think part of what's driving that, which I totally get that makes total sense what they're asking, but you don't need to do all side quests to complete your renown for that area. Like you can do
That's
it through
also
other
true.
things, right?
Yeah.
So though there's a completionist notion of, because we have some surprise side quests that you can't track. So the notion of, oh, I killed a mob, it dropped a thing,
Right.
and there's no way to know that on the map. And right now, there's no way to say, oh, I'm missing that sword falling one, and people go like, oh, go kill that wolf that drops the sword or whatever. So but if your desire for being a completionist around side quests is for renown, you can actually complete renown without doing all the side quests.
And then, this is kind of a similar question, and I think this kind of falls across like quality of life. This is from Java Jinx. Are there planned quality of life improvements like search functions in the stash or for specific dungeons? I will tell you, like, again, this is another, like, these are features that will obviously be looked at, and, you know, the game is going to improve over time as we go from season to season. Lots of quality of life items will end up kind of appearing. We'll be evaluating them all as they kind of come in. I'm going to take one last question, which is...
And who's it from?
Who's this from? And this one I think is just a clarification from people. This is from Nexian. It says, can you just re-clear something you said earlier so we can keep all skill points, potion charges, max obols, and paragon points from renown for seasons?
Right. That's an important thing to clarify. So the renown, so things like paragon points at the end of the renown bar. You will start with some renown. You're not going to get those paragon points that require finishing the renown bar until you fill the renown bar.
Okay, well, so that's my fault because I misunderstood. So it wasn't that they didn't understand. I misexplained it. So currently, like in the Eternal Realm, if I
Right.
on one character I complete the full renown bar, so I get my obols and I get my paragon points. If I roll an alt, I have those. I have the skill points. I have this potion charge. I have the obols. I have the paragon points. Right now, being that are shared between my characters on my account.
Some elements of the paragon system are shared between characters. Things like the Altars of Lilith also give you stat points.
Right, but I'm just saying that that's how it works today in the Eternal Realm in terms of going between one character to another. The renown unlocks on the bottom level are account-wide, yes?
In seasons, you will the things that are at the end of the renown bar, you will still have to acquire renown to get.
Right, that's why I was just trying to clarify what it is today for alts is different than what it will be in season reset, right? So today with alts, I clear all on my account, I get it across all my characters. So you're saying when we do a season reset, and if you clear it all on a character, or like when you have a map that's revealed in the Eternal Realm, when I go into the season, the map will be clear.
Right.
I'll have the renown for that, but I won't have like potentially the max 80 obols and
Right.
the paragon automatically unlocked because I haven't discovered enough. I haven't gone and hit all those waypoints that would fill that bar.
Right.
Yeah.
But you
And-
will have the renown for revealing the map, and you'll have the renown for collecting the Altars of Lilith, to the extent that you have done that.
Right,
Yeah,
and that'll trigger the other things like potion and skill points. And
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah.
And Mr. Joey P, just pinged me saying like, you get the renown from the Fog of
Sorry,
War
who's
clear.
Joey P? Is that one of the community members?
Yeah, Joey P. associate. but yeah.
Question from our own team is associate designer.
He mentions you get the renown from Fog of War clear and Altars of Discovery, which is what Joe had just mentioned. But then enough to get you through the first 2 tiers of renown in each zone. So that's
that was my fault. I thought it worked the way it works in the Eternal now. It doesn't. It's basically we're just preloading you a bunch of renown that will then unlock the stuff for you. I get it. Yeah.
Got a pocket Joey P over there.
I know,
Pocket Joey P.
Pocket Joey P. Well, we well over the time estimate that we were going to have, so I apologize,
really.
everyone.
That's your fault.
We're eating into our lunch. But I do want to thank everyone for tuning in. This is our first Campfire Chat. Again, Campfire Chat's really good opportunity for us to actually talk with the community, address specific topics that players have been talking about, and at the same time, just chat.
Yeah, I mean, the intention is we want to have more ad hoc, informal. We don't want to have to wait till some big thing or whatever. Like, this is a game we're all playing and want to talk about. So we just want to be able to not have this like, okay, the third Thursday of every month we're doing this. Like, we just want to be able to go like, hey, let's talk about the game and with the community. So we're going to try to do these more often and keep them light, keep them casual as best we can.
Yep, and obviously we still have the hardcore race going on. We actually posted an update on social media yesterday about how many people were up there.
Still like 700.
As of yesterday, still like 700 slots for people to make it on the statue.
We're actually digging the hole for the statue on campus. So they're pouring the cement thing to the statue can go on top of. So
Ron's always giving spoilers.
What, that we're putting the statue on campus? How's that a spoiler?
It's just like blocked off. No one can like see it. Even internal people can't see it, you know.
I'm just saying it's kind of cool. I've never had that before in a game where your name, like as the development team is walking to lunch, they can see your name on the statue. I think it's kind of cool. And that reminds us of our community and our fans out there who are playing the game. And and people were like, oh my God, first time. Like, I get the first thing, but we made it 1,000 for a reason. We wanted people to be able to enjoy the story and play the game at their pace. And we wanted to get through, our first 10 days plus early access, so that people didn't feel, because we knew, as our production director often says, it's going to be a little rock and roll, and we knew for hardcore, bold people who decided to do hardcore like on our first day, because definitely a little rock and roll. But we wanted people to have that opportunity. So there's still 700 spots available. So if you haven't rolled a hardcore yet, you can, today could be the day, or I'm sure we still have lots of time to get there. So, maybe we'll do something around BlizzCon and the statue. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? The other thing that I did want to remind people is that obviously our next developer update live stream, we'll be talking about that date soon, but we are planning for that to be in early July. We'll be going over Season 1 details then.
Ooh, Season 1 details.
Ooh,
I
just want to
know
do
what
that
it is.
in unison with you, that's all.
I know. Ooh. So the zombie thing, we're going to explain the zombie thing?
Yeah, we're going to talk about more about zombies.
Zombies.
Yeah. It's a really cool season.
It
Can't wait to go over all
it
the
is not.
details.
If you didn't watch the previous
Joe
stream,
now has to clear out.
Wait, you can't have an inside joke.
this is
People
a
don't
joke
know.
from the previous stream.
Right.
It
We
is
joked
not
that
zombies.
It is not zombies. Zombies was our illustrative example of what the season could be, but is not. So we were just referring to that.
But yeah, so make sure to tune in for that. And of course, we'll have more of these campfire chats. There's still lots of updates that are coming here really soon.
Yay, Tiffany!
Yay, Tiffany!
Keep rolling, just keep rolling.
And we'll have of course all those patch notes and details up on the site once those are available. As you guys heard, a lot of these changes are going to be coming before Season 1. So we'll make sure to keep you guys informed. Make sure to follow us on social at Diablo on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, etc.
Here, smash that subscribe button for you,
Smash that
Adam.
subscribe button, guys. Like and subscribe. But yeah, thank you guys again, and we'll see you on the next stream.
All right, guys and gals, let's talk about this because there was a lot of information dropped in this little stream here. First off, the most blatantly obvious thing that they waved in our faces, like literally waved in our faces, is this thing that he's holding in his hand right here. If you guys were blind, you didn't see him holding this big giant piece of paper where he literally said that this is the first patch that's going to be coming for Diablo 4. So what we've seen so far hasn't really been patches so much as that's been like little hot fixes, tiny little things here and there. Like, it's not really a super, really ridiculously big thing. And by the way, hit the damn like button, suckers. Only 38 likes and there's 123 of you viewing. You should be ashamed of yourselves. This patch coming up is the first real patch, is basically what they're saying. It's the first planned patch for the game. And they're telling us that it's 13 pages of patch notes. 13 pages, boys. 13 pages is a lot. It's 8.5 legal paper. I mean, letter size paper. All right, 8.5 by 11 letter size paper. All right, that is a lot of dang patch notes. Depending on what font size they use and whether or not they double spaced, that's a lot of damn patch notes. All right, we're going to be seeing some pretty crazy changes, it looks like. And on top of this, the boy sitting right here on this particular part of the screen has said that there's going to be a lot of buffs in this patch. So a lot of buffs, a lot of performance fixes, some quality of life changes. Like, there's some interesting things that are coming with this ridiculous patch. I mean, it sounds like it's going to be one of those things where literally I sit here for like an hour and I'm like, and we fixed an issue known to cause blah, 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 and we fixed an issue caused blah, 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 and we fixed an issue, blah, 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 and we fixed an issue, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be like 3 hours of me saying, and we fixed an issue. Shut up. Okay, I like reading the patch notes. It's fun to go over the patch notes. I don't care how many times I got to say they fixed an issue. Okay? I don't care. They talked about the renown system. So a lot of people have been really kind of upset about like having to grind out all the renown. And basically what it sounds like they're saying is that we're going to have all of the renown for exploring the map and all of the renown for finding the altars of Lilith, but not the rest of it. So that's 340 for finding the altars of Lilith, I think. Like, it depends on the zone, because some of them have less or more. And then apparently the entire map will be explored too, if we explore the map. So if you go through the process of doing all your renown quests right now, there will be certain things that will carry over to the latter start season. The altars of Lilith seem to be one of them, including the renown for the altars of Lilith, because I think what they realized is that even if they give you the buffs and you don't have the renown, you're still probably going to have to go get them so that you can get the Paragon points at the end of the tree, because the Paragon points are the candy at the end of the, at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. And you need that 340 renown points that you get from the altars of Lilith to actually make it there. So it seems like they're giving us the renown points and they're letting the map, the fog of war, be lifted from the map. So it sounds like they're listening to us in terms of like not having to grind out the entire renown points. But it looks like we still will have to grind out some of it. They're going to give us a head start. They're going to take like some things into account, and we're going to have some things activated for us. It looks like we're definitely going to get that first skill point for free. 100%. So like the first skill point, maybe even the first potion for free, because the exploring the entire zone and getting all the altars of Lilith is probably enough to bump you straight to tier 2, maybe even tier 3. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to look at the numbers, but it's going to bump you pretty quickly up the tree, and you're probably going to have access to, at the very least, your 1 skill point and your extra potion, which means you're going to get at least 5 extra skill points right at the start, like from day 1. They also said you'd be able to skip the campaign when you start a new ladder, so you won't be forced to do the campaign again if you don't want to do the campaign again. It's up to you. I'm not exactly sure it's a good idea to skip the campaign because of all the free legendaries that the game gives you essentially in during the campaign. But I guess if you skip the campaign, you can always get your legendaries elsewhere. There's more. They talked about the gems specifically and also the inventory stress. They called it inventory stress, and they're not lying. The inventory is very stressed in Diablo 4. You can hold on to your legendaries, you can hold on to your uniques, you can hold on to your pants, but before too long, it doesn't take very long before your inventory is completely full. You're trying to figure out what to throw away. You've got a yard sale out on the front of the house, and you're trying to get rid of some things, and your wife's yelling at you in the back, like, "If you don't get rid of that garbage right now, I'm going to throw it out on the street." And it's not even a joke. Like, literally, it's that bad. Like, and that's just one character. Like, good lord, I can't even imagine 2, 3, 4 characters at this point. I haven't even started on my second character, and my stash is already a complete and utter mess. Looks like a garage where somebody just threw everything in there. And I've been trying my best to keep it organized. So, hopefully with their talk of identifying inventory stress items definitely works out to our advantage. Although I am a little bit worried that they're taking the gems and putting them as materials, which is what they said, because you can't take any of those materials out of there when you need them. So, like, I can't trade any veiled crystals with my friend if he needs veiled crystals. I can't give him any crushed beast bones if he needs some crushed beast bones. But, like, if they take the gems and put them all inside them in the materials, then I might not be able to give those to anybody else either. I guess the gems really aren't so rare that it's that big of a deal, but if my friend's like, hey, do you got 2 royal sapphires? And I'd be like, sure, here, have 2 royal sapphires, and I can't give them to him, that seems kind of stupid. They talked a lot about, like, how they did a lot of nerfs recently, and that was just kind of like what they had to do. And leading into the future, we've got other things. The only thing that really kind of bugged me, though, was apparently a lot of the fixes and a lot of the things that they were talking about, they're like Season 2. Like, that's coming in Season 2. Like, apparently they've already got this Season 1 patch ready. Like, before the game even launched. Like, they were probably already almost finished, if not completely finished, with the Season 1 patch. So they didn't have a chance to incorporate all of the feedback that we've been giving them into Season 1. So Season 1 is literally going to come out without any of these fixes, and then Season 2 is going to have all the fixes in it. Because they literally rushed Season 1 as fast as they possibly could and didn't wait for any of the feedback that we were providing for them. So there's a very good chance that we're not going to see hardly any changes, like to a lot of the more common issues, like the gems, for instance, that they said wouldn't be fixed until around Season 2. They also talked about the dungeons, and apparently how normal dungeons were more effective for grinding EXP than the later dungeons, which is something that has been an issue. Like, apparently a lot of people have basically just been avoiding the nightmare dungeons. And they've talked about kind of balancing the nightmare dungeons out, making them more attractive, also making them higher EXP than the regular dungeons, of course, and also apparently being able to teleport directly to the dungeon and also directly to the next dungeon. So instead of having to take the waypoint and ride there, they're going to let you basically teleport directly to the dungeon, which is interesting. They did give us a date for Season 1. So Season 1 is apparently going to be coming mid to late July. That was the statement. So mid to late July is about a month away, because we're currently in mid-June right now. So if we take mid-July and we take the same date that we're currently on, which is the 16th, so you're talking about like July 16th to July 31st. So in between these 2 weeks. And on top of that, the Diablo games tend to let me ban this guy real quick who's spamming in my chat. The Diablo games tend to be what's the term, released on like Thursdays. It's like Thursdays. So I would assume like the 15th, the 22nd, or the 29th. You can pretty much just assume that's what it's going to be. Also, the patch notes, I don't know when this patch is supposedly coming, this really big patch, but they always tend to release the patch notes on Tuesdays. It's currently June 16th, so we're looking at probably the 20th or the 27th. It's probably going to be coming in the next few weeks, I would bet, if not early July, because the patch is most likely going to come out before Season 1. They're definitely not going to release this patch on the day that Season 1 starts. They're going to want to test it, see how we react to it, make some changes, and that sort of stuff, which is going to, allow for various, alternative fixes or hot fixes as necessary to potentially fix things that might break when the season comes out. So you're not going to see this patch on the season launch. We're going to see this long before the season launch. Obviously, hit the subscribe button and stick around, because I always do patch note videos. I usually try and get them out literally the same exact day or the same exact minute that they literally come out with, and I literally analyze the patch to hell and back, and look for any little secret little things that they put in there. A lot of the times, that's my favorite part about patch notes, is going through the patch notes and finding those little secret tidbits that they like to put inside the patch notes. That it's like some innocuous thing, like they just like there's like an afterthought to them. They're just like, yeah, we changed this, whatever. And you're like, wait, what? You changed what? And you literally, like, the people that actually play the game realize that little tiny innocuous change, that's just one little line in a patch, like, literally changes, like, the whole game. So, like, those are always fun to find. Honestly, I'm hoping to see a lot of fixes for various things. I literally just put out 2 videos, by the way. If you guys haven't checked them out yet, I put out a video called The Good, and I put out a video called The Bad. And the 2 videos are meant to be taken together, not separately, because obviously there's a lot of good things and there's a lot of bad things. I don't necessarily think the game is bad. In fact, I think the game is more good than bad. But if you take a look at my bad video, there's a lot of stuff in there that they actually addressed in today's little campfire chat. Some of the problems that I was talking about, like the inventory stress, the nightmare sigils, some various other things that I went over in those videos. The quality of life things that need to be fixed that they hopefully will eventually address. And this is one of the reasons why I think, and I still think, that Diablo 4 is a good game, because I feel like the core of the game is there. And as time goes on, as we see patch after patch after patch, I feel like the quality of life issues will be fixed. They already talked about a search bar in the stash window. That was in today's video as well. And a search function within the stash would be amazing. I've been talking about that as well, because the stash is just way too crowded and hard to go through half the time, especially when you're looking for a specific aspect. They talked about the gems. They talked about like inventory stress in general, how it just feels like the inventory fills up way too fast and how you just don't have enough stash space. Little quality of life fixes here and there, like being able to teleport directly to the nightmare sigil instead of having to go to the waypoint and then ride to the nightmare dungeon. Overall, I'm kind of impressed with this campfire chat. They really hit a lot of notes that I was hoping that they would hit. Have they addressed everything that I brought up as an issue? No, they haven't addressed everything. But they definitely have been listening. And that's one of the things that Pez Radar said, is that literally they are listening. They are watching. They are literally scouring the internet, apparently, for information and bugs and topics and what we have to say on a lot of this stuff. And I can totally say that's true, because I'm pretty sure they've seen a couple of my videos too, because one of the things that they talked about was one of my more popular videos that I have on my channel right now, which is how resistances are basically useless within Diablo 4. I think it's Joe Piaparo was talking about it at one point during the video. I can't remember which point he was talking about it. But they were talking about how resistances in general are not performing as they had anticipated. In other words, let me translate. Resistances are currently useless. Due to the fact that there is a world tier penalty, half of the resistances are being applied from armor, and a lot of the multiplicative formulas that are going on in the background, resistance is basically a waste stat at this particular point, and it is unfortunate. And he said that's something that they're looking into, something that they want to fix, obviously. And I'm hoping that they do, because as of right now, it just doesn't seem useful at all. I'm not really 100% sure about these changes. I want to see what they do, obviously. Just because somebody says I'm going to fix something doesn't necessarily mean they're actually going to fix it the way that it should. It's like, oh yeah, the fence post fell down. Oh yeah, I'll fix that. Don't worry about it. You come home from work later and it's like a pink flamingo, and it has like a nail in its forehead with a little sign on it that says, like babies are us or something. And you're like, how was that fixing the pole? And you're like, well, you said to fix it, and that's the idea that I had was I got the pink flamingo, but why? It's a fence post. Why did it need to be a pink flamingo? And you're like, You said to fix it. I just, you know what? If you don't like it, you can take it back. Like, so I want to see what they're gonna do. I'm glad that they're addressing the issues. I'm glad that they're bringing it up. I'm glad that they've acknowledged the issues. But I would also like to see what they have in mind to actually fix the issues. It's not always as cut and dry as it seems. This 13-page patch notes that they're waving in my face, that literally, Adam was waving in my face the entire time. He literally had them in his hand and was waving them in my face. Oh my God, I would love to get my hands on those. Of course, those are probably not the official patch notes, that are completely done. Like they're probably going to make some changes on those, up to a certain point. But I can't wait to scroll through those patch notes and read all the juicy tidbits. Although, quite honestly, I need to get into leveling some other characters so that I could really understand the patch notes to the best of my ability. It's one of the things that I've been doing the most, by the way, this entire time, is literally just been trying to learn as much as I can about the game. All the characters, all the aspects, all the uniques, everything, the mechanics, all of it. I'm trying my best to learn everything so that I can, obviously, pass that knowledge on to you guys. I think that's pretty much it, other than the fact that they ate some marshmallow cookies for the campfire. There really wasn't like a whole lot in here. They did talk about the hot fixes and how apparently there's going to be a whole lot of more hot fixes coming. And the hot fixes are meant to address immediate issues that need to be tackled. Like, for instance, when they disabled the aspect of the berserk gripping because it wasn't working properly, and then they re-enabled it later. It seems like they're probably going to be applying hot fixes a lot these days. So, in the past, when you played like MMOs and stuff like that, and you had some ridiculously overpowered build or whatever, and everybody's telling you like they're gonna nerf that build, you just wait until the next patch, your build's getting squashed into the dirt, and then the next patch would come and they would nerf your build into the dirt, right? Well, we've gone past those days. Those days don't exist anymore. They're doing hot fixes now. The hot fixes are server side, and they can nerf your build anytime they want to. So like if it's 2 days after a patch, you ended up exploiting some ridiculous thing, they find out about it, and they could just literally nerf it on day 3 with a hot fix, not even apply a patch. And then they can come back in later with a patch, fixing it completely. These hot fixes are essentially allowing them the opportunity to completely wipe out these bugs off the face of the earth, or off the face of Sanctuary, with ridiculous speed. It's not like in the old days where MMOs where you had to wait until the next patch came out, or the developers would have to put together like a quick patch and it would come out like 4 or 5 days later fixing the issue. No. They're literally like Johnny on the spot, like literally within the same day, sometimes even within the same couple hours of the patch, figuring out some of this stuff and literally killing it. So these hot fixes are coming out all the time now, and I would definitely think about this when you go to exploit some ridiculousness that's somebody has just discovered, like, oh my god, 8.8 billion crits with this ridiculous exploit, and then like literally an hour later it's gone because they're going to hotfix it out of existence. It's like a lightning rod. Whenever you see one of those stupid videos go up where somebody's exploiting something, the developers see it too. They're not stupid. And then they're going to hotfix it out of existence just like that. And this is honestly a whole new realm of reactive like development, which means that they're literally going to be on board watching us play, watching us mess this stuff up. I don't know what the hell, my lights are possessed. Patching this stuff as we do it. Most notably, they're probably going to be watching streamers, people who are making over-the-top videos, things like that. So the advice that I would have for you is this. Just play the game and have fun. Don't follow, X streamer's current exploit, or go look up, this broken build, like, that is on YouTube that just got posted 3 hours ago. Because chances are, if they're using some kind of exploit, or if they're using some kind of broken thing within that patch, they're going to hotfix it out of existence relatively quickly. However, if you're playing your own build of your own devising, if you're literally coming up with the ideas yourself, it's not being broadcasted to the world. And even if you do happen to find an exploit yourself, guess what? You're not putting it on the internet for everyone to see, and there's a very good chance you can actually utilize it for a certain period of time before it might get found out. But if you go on the internet and you go to these stupid build videos and you follow some build guide that's using an exploit, chances are it's probably going to get patched out really quickly now. You're not going to have to wait till the next big patch to come out. They're just going to hotfix it out immediately. And they've already done it to several items. They nerfed Goer's devastating grips. They nerfed the aspect of berserk ripping. They turned off the twisting blades for a little while when that was bugged. Like, they've literally been Johnny on the spot nerfing every single one of these things as they come out. And it's actually been quite impressive to watch, because I always look at these ridiculously overpowered builds and I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to play the game how I want to play it. But deep down, you know, it has always bothered me that this character over here is just exploiting the ever-loving crap out of the game, and the developers don't care, you know what I mean? But it's not that they didn't care, it's that they're very slow to react. But it looks like these hotfixes have completely changed that. Now they're no longer slow to react. And as soon as they find out about these exploits, they're gone. Like, it doesn't even take them very long. They turn off whatever the exploit is. They just turn it off. They work out how to fix it, and then they apply another hotfix later to fix it, and they turn the aspect back on. And I literally watched them do that to the aspect of the berserk ripping, turn that off, fixed it, and then turned it back on. Like, done. I think that's pretty much everything. They had a lot of stuff going on in here. If you didn't watch it, probably should watch it. It was a pretty good Q&A. This is actually one of the better ones that I've seen so far. They gave us more information than, honestly, I've ever seen in any of these. They addressed a lot of the issues which we were having, talked about a lot of the quality of life problems, talked about the upcoming patches, gave us information on Season 1, went over the process of talking about inventory stress, also talked about the renown system, because that's a really big topic right now, is people kind of complaining that you know, having to regrind the renown every single ladder season is a little bit of a pain in the butt. And honestly, a really good Diablo IV Campfire, like, all around. This is the kind of stuff that you want to see from your developers. You want to see them active, looking at the forums, reading the feedback, trying to figure out things, you know, like literally talking with, you know, random people. I don't know if they've been watching my streams, but they've obviously been watching some people's streams, because they seem to have their finger literally on the pulse of the community right now. This Campfire has shown me that they are paying attention. They're listening to what we have to say. Now, whether or not they actually want to fix the things that we're talking about, that's a whole other story. But they have at least acknowledged the fact that we're here and we're complaining about things. I think that's pretty much it. I don't want to keep this going like too ridiculously long. If you guys want to watch it on your own, they do have it up already. It's just up there as a VOD at this point, or you can just rewatch mine. I make funny faces during the entire thing. I was kind of disappointed, though, in the Season 2 stuff. So they did a lot of talking about how a lot of the fixes and a lot of the changes that they want to make are not going to come till Season 2, which is disappointing, to say the least. But they did go over why it wasn't coming till Season 2. Not that they didn't want to put it into Season 1, but they made it very clear that the process of getting a big patch authorized requires them to contact PlayStation, contact Xbox, requires them to contact, you know, like the various organizations, submit the patch, get the patch authorized. The patch has to be reviewed by the company, and then it has to be accepted. And apparently what's going on is that this particular Season 1 patch apparently has already gone through all this. It's already been authorized. Apparently it's already ready. So when they apply the Season 1 patch to the game, they can't make a whole lot of changes to it because then they'd have to send it back through the authorization process, send it back to the PlayStation company, send it back to Xbox, and get everything reauthorized and re-reviewed and everything like that. So basically what they're saying is all of these changes, everything that they did in the quality of life is going to make it into Season 2, not Season 1, which is pretty stupid in my opinion, but it really has to do with the fact that they just pushed really hard to get Season 1 out as quickly as possible, which they probably shouldn't have done, in my opinion. They should have, what's the term, waited for some of the player feedback. Obviously, it wouldn't have taken very much time. We're only 2 weeks into the launch of the game, and I think everybody has plenty of things to say about the game. I certainly do. I literally just put out 2 videos, the good and the bad, and going over all the things that I thought were bad about the game and going over all the things that I thought were good about the game. And there's a lot of people that have put out content like this or talked on the forums and things like that, talking about their various experiences. So if they had waited just a little bit, they could have incorporated all that into Season 1, but they rushed through, and so they're not going to be able to do that. So we got to wait till Season 2 to get all the fixes for the things that we're complaining about right now, which is kind of stupid. Apparently they're going to try and rush through some of the more important stuff in Season 1, so who knows what we're going to see. It sounds like this patch, this freaking ridiculous 13-page patch is going to be massive, though. And who knows, they may have accidentally touched on a lot of the issues that we have had with the game. Maybe. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we're just checking out the latest Diablo IV Campfire. I will probably be streaming later tonight. Ooh, I didn't mean to do that. I'll probably be streaming later tonight. I don't know. We'll see. I'm gonna eat some food with my lady first. As always, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the like button if you want to keep watching. Or I might not be here. Who knows? Maybe I'll disappear.